The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 years, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists. Jess C. from Dr. Orange Pill.
We are all Satoshi.
Josh Shigala from thestandard.io.
Hey, everyone.
Welcome back, Josh. Robert Allen from satlantis.io.
I'm no longer with Atlantis.
Sorry,
But
Robert.
hello.
Whatever
It's
you,
okay.
whatever
I'm
you
no
from
longer, no
check
longer with
before,
this.
but not this time. Jimmy Song from Programming Bitcoin.
Yeah, I'm also not really doing those seminars anymore. I did open source it. But hi everybody.
Well, we'll check again at the beginning. We were hurried to rush to start the show. And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue one. The price of Bitcoin is down 3.5% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 90,228, a high of 93,519, and a low of 89,585, which is our top story. Bitcoin plunges below 90K as AI worries drag NASDAQ and crypto stocks down, as well as the Fed cutting rates, not saving the price of Bitcoin. Jess C., what's wrong with the price of Bitcoin? Everyone's worried.
I gotta say, I remember a year ago, everybody saying the headline would be Bitcoin crashes to below 90,000, and it was a big joke. And here we are. So, what are you gonna do? I'm happy to see it. Love to see it. And it's funny to see the fear and greed index going like to single digits on a drop to like the mid 80s. But whatever is gonna happen is gonna happen, and we're gonna sit back and enjoy the ride, I guess.
Josh Shigala, they expected the Fed rate cut to save it, but no help. The price of Bitcoin still 90K.
Yeah, it's interesting because the Fed rate cut. Well, look, you've got a whole bunch of problems at the moment with the repo markets, with just everything collecting. You've got Japan. You've got there's major issues that are probably orders of magnitude larger than 2008. And they will print the hell out of themselves to get out of this. And that's when, Bitcoin was the hedge against inflation, like gold. So this will happen because there's no other way. You got to kick the can down the road, or you got to have a bit of a reset, and the reset isn't going to be, allowed to happen. But what I think will happen, the real question is, will the financial elite allow for a little correction before they turn on the money printers so they can gobble up some cheap stock? Or will they just print themselves out so that they're, looking good the whole way through to the midterms? I guess we'll find out.
It's been devastating for the shorts and the longs. Robert Allen, your thoughts on the price of Bitcoin?
I love it. I love it when it goes down. I really do. No, it kind of just, it separates the wheat from the chaff. You find out who's here for the right reasons and who's here for short-term trading and so on. So I don't really notice that much anymore. It's been like this for so long, and the dips, like as Jesse was saying, I mean, what was this 5%? It doesn't even my heart doesn't even begin to beat, irregularly because of this. It's just how Bitcoin is. It's okay.
Jimmy Song, they say the price was supposed to go up after the rate cut, but it's still down. What do you think?
Well, so my thesis has been that this is a max pain play, and there are way too many Bitcoin treasury companies and altcoin treasury companies and so on, and are leveraged to the hilt, and you can see it in their stock prices and so on. As Bitcoin price goes down, they go down like multiples more just because they're leveraged and so on. So I suspect that this is the real play, is that some of them need to get wiped out first before we go back on a bull run, because there's just so much pressure and so many of these these banks that lent to them and stuff like that. There's a lot of momentum on that side because they did leverage and kind of have to pay the piper at some point. And it's not really about Fed rates or whatever. There's just too much supply as a result of artificial money that came into through that leverage.
And we'll just have to see what happens in the future. We're moving on to predictions at the end of this show. Are you ready for? We got all kinds of new chats here. Go away. AI companions, pop-ups. Let's see. Here we are. We're going to predict the future here with the exit question. What will the price of Bitcoin be this time next week? Higher or lower? Jesse, will it be higher or lower?
Eternal spring, eternal optimist. I always say higher.
Josh Shigala, higher or lower?
I think we're going to have a proper correction because under 90, it's been going up and above 90K for a little while. So I think, unfortunately, we're going to have a proper correction, probably down to like 80, 70. If the whole market, I can't see the market lasting too much longer, and the elite will want to buy cheaper everything, especially some of these Tensor chips and Nvidia and all this stuff. They'll want to snap it up and start to realize the shit that they missed.
Robert Allen, higher or lower?
I always say higher. It's gonna be higher.
Eventually.
Jimmy Song, higher or lower?
Statistically, you're almost always better off going higher, but I'm just gonna say lower just because my thesis is that you need some of this like chaff to get washed out first.
We've certainly seen it go up and down, wiping out the shorts and the longs, but we really have the true predictor of Bitcoin price here, the Bitcoin predictor ball. Now, will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? And it says, very hard to read. It is decidedly so. It is decidedly so. So the price will be going up next week.
Oh, fuck. I'm buying.
Yay!
That's it. Moving on to issue 2. The Swiss city that lets you pay for most things with Bitcoin. Lugano, Switzerland is now the home of Bitcoin, according to the BBC. Shops and restaurants across the city accept Bitcoin, including McDonald's, in a lake surrounded by mountains. Josh Shigala, what do you think about Lugano accepting Bitcoin, as well as Bitcoin acceptance generally? Is it catching on in the real world?
It does, but the HODL meme is too large. I think if they accept stable coins, that it'll probably be used more because I'd like people to use Bitcoin more as payment, but they tend not to. They tend to use stable coins, and that's rational because Bitcoin's going to go up, and God knows the crap I bought when it was very cheap. It's kind of these regrettable moments, but at the same time, it is what it is. I remember the good old days when Berlin was the Bitcoin city because we had one street that accepted it all. Yeah, it's basically if you can plug into something, some large chain, and use their payment terminals, it'll drastically speed up any adoption. But whether it's stable coins or not, it doesn't really bother me. At the end of the day, what happens is that people start to play around with cryptocurrency and use it on their phone and actually use it. That's what would be good, even though it's centralized stablecoin, which is probably horrific, but it is what it is.
I agree, Josh. It used to be all about Berlin or maybe the nearby Italian city of Rovereto, but now Lugano. Robert Allen, what do you think of Lugano and spending Bitcoin in person?
I've never been to Lugano. I've been to Zurich. I'd like to visit. Yeah, I think it's great. I think there are more and more of these circular economy attempts popping up all over. I'm excited I'm going to be heading to Cape Town actually in at the end of January for the Adopting Bitcoin conference there. And South Africa's got some good things going. They've got like big merchants accepting. So I think this trend is going to continue, pockets everywhere, and then you'll get places like the US with Square terminal, and it's, so gradually and suddenly, as we all say.
I agree. And Square has been a great activation for the US. Many merchants just turning on the Bitcoin, but it's a two-sided thing. You have to want to spend it, and they have to want to accept it. Jimmy Song, what do you think about Lugano and Bitcoin spending in person?
Yeah, so I've been there many times and I have spent my Bitcoin there. And just to let you know, you can spend your stable coins there as well. In fact, I think the Naka people, that's like the point of sale service terminal. They accept Bitcoin on chain, Lightning, and Tether. That so like the way their interface works is that you have to go to this other thing and whatever. My take on it is that it's actually not that convenient, and that's the big thing is all of these in-person peer-to-peer trading or paying method of payment use cases have been trotted out all over the place. The only places where it really works is where more convenient methods don't exist, and
Yeah.
even cash is oftentimes more convenient than using Bitcoin. So I mean, it's a nice story. Yeah, there's a lot of merchants that take it, but other than the 1 week around the Lugano Plan B forum, I don't think too many people actually spend Bitcoin there. And like yeah, I've even like if you go maybe a couple days early and try to pay for it in Bitcoin, like a lot of the merchants don't know how to do it. One year, I think they were filming me like going to a pharmacy and like just paying for some toothpaste or something, and the like register person said, "Oh, I don't know how to do it, so we can't take Bitcoin." So it was just, I don't know. There are people that will take it. Obviously, the people that know what value Bitcoin has, but the vast majority of people, it's just sort of like a novelty kind of thing, and it makes for great puff pieces like this. But that's about it.
It
Yeah,
does
it's
seem more
interesting. That
like what Josh was saying. You need someone like the cash register company to add it. Having Square add it. These kind of large adoptions are a lot better than city by city work, even though we don't want to downplay city by city work because who knows how we get there in the end. Maybe city by city work reaches the guy who works at the cash register company. But go ahead, Josh. I
we
cut you off more on that.
Well, I was just going to add to the Jimmy. So, we found that in Berlin as well. Like people would get all hyped up the shops, but then one person's sick or they leave the job or they haven't done it in ages and then they fiddle around and they're like, I don't know. Don't worry here. I just have these euros. And it's always the same. But it's the same in a gold fair. I remember trying to pay for a piece of something, some sort of memorabilia with a piece of silver. And they were like, oh, but yeah, and it took like 20, 30 minutes just to figure out how to get the payment going because it was slightly over and you had to, yeah, and then conversion and everything else. It just, it's hard. Yeah. So, yeah, to Jimmy's point, I think places where there isn't such convenience, or people do actually get paid a lot more in stable coins and stuff like that, or Bitcoin. They where they don't have anything else, they have to spend that. That's where it'll happen.
It's also hard to take down cash, which undeniably has gotten easier with a tap to pay and then Apple Pay having the cards on your wallet. Let's go to Jess C. What do you think about Lugano, the city in Switzerland that takes Bitcoin and Bitcoin adoption in the real world?
Yeah, it's sort of piggybacking off of Josh and Jimmy. Yeah, two things. One, it's definitely cool. And the second thing that I like about it is that it's a really good reminder of how early we still are. A lot of us forget how that we really are very, very early. And we're still like almost, I call it dial-up modem phase in the whole Bitcoin ecosystem. So there's the one thing, it's like, you don't really want to spend Bitcoin at the moment anyway. So you're more incentivized to want to spend cash or stable coins for the obvious reason. And the other thing is like, so I live in New York City. There's 3 places that I know of that take Bitcoin, and I've done it there. Bought at all the places as sort of like a novelty because it's fun. But I don't go in there all the time to want to spend Bitcoin. I do go to those places to support them, but I'd rather spend cash. And when I remember going to Steak and Shake when they first started taking Bitcoin, I was very excited. And my friend was taking a video, sort of like Jimmy had said, I tried to pay with Lightning, and I had a node running off of my home computer, like a Raspberry Pi, and my node had crashed while I was on vacation. I didn't know it, so I got all the way to the end, and I couldn't even do it. I ended up having to pay cash anyway. So we're still very early. So that's a nice reminder. I think it is cool that it's happening and is slowly becoming more and more. At some point, maybe people will want to, buy just Bitcoin back and forth. And what Strike is doing, I think, is great too. We don't have Strike in New York yet, but from what I understand, you with that you can choose to pay with whatever method you want to, and the receiver gets it in whatever way they want to get it. So that's pretty cool too. And if that starts working out, that'll be really nice for the overall ecosystem. I mean, it is supposed to be money, and it is money, but it's like, it's still kind of, to me, more of a store of value. And I think for most people, it probably is that.
We are still at a very early age of digital cash where most people still have freedom with the traditional cash and with traditional credit cards. We could see a tighter system in the future where people have to go to Bitcoin. But for now, I echo the panel saying mainly you need Bitcoin for things that are in a gray area, for paying for drinks at a conference, for paying back your buddies, for buying things that maybe you can't buy here or there. But for actually needing it in day-to-day purchases, it's easier to give cash or to tap to pay. In Europe, if you don't have tap to pay on your card, you seem like a weirdo anyway. It's bad enough. But let's move on to the next issue, which of course is check out Plan B Forum. As Jimmy said, there's a great conference in Lugano, Switzerland. We just want to give them a shout out where we're talking about Lugano, Switzerland. Also, check out worldcryptonetwork.com. If you click on hosts on the left-hand side, you can find Jimmy Song in this list of many hosts, and check out over 95 shows with Jimmy Song on the World Crypto Network, and probably more out there as well, but these are the ones we have tagged. Check it out for free at worldcryptonetwork.com. Thanks to Jimmy for being on the show. And we also wanted to shout out to Bitfest in Manchester that we just got back from, a great Bitcoin conference, and to BTC Prague, which we're thinking about going to, not sure, but you should check it out in Europe. It's a huge Bitcoin conference, BTC Prague.
Summarize.
Issue
any data
3.
can be encoded as any data. One person's spam is another person's content. The power to decide what is and what isn't allowed is dangerous because it leads to censorship. It also leads to giving the developers power over the protocol, which will eventually be used by someone else.
Andreas Antonopoulos speaks out on the NOTS debate, siding pretty clearly on the core side, saying that if NOTS is allowed to censor, they will censor. Let's go to Robert Allen. What do you think about the NOTS debate in general and seeing Andreas Antonopoulos inject himself into that debate?
Well, it makes me a little sad because Andreas is one of the first people I started listening to back in the day, and one of the reasons I got into Bitcoin. I would say I owe him quite a bit, but I think I don't know if he's intentionally doing so or just has been away for a while, but to try to say that um, that like any data should be on Bitcoin and it doesn't matter, and if you prefer that it's transactional data and that's what Bitcoin was designed to do is to transmit money, right? If you have a preference for how it's used, then somehow you are censoring Bitcoin. And I think that's really stupid, basically. It's either just disingenuous or stupid, but it's crazy. I mean, Bitcoin was designed for a purpose. If you use it for something that it's not designed for, and then say, "Oh, well, don't censor me," that's crazy.
Jimmy Song, your thoughts on NOTS and Andreas Antonopoulos entering the fray?
Yeah, I mean, I said this in various vlogs that I did like a couple months ago, but I really do think there's a left-right component to this, and I think we all kind of know that Andreas is more on the left. And I think this is why he's kind of come down on the side that he's done. I mean, there's a lot of things wrong with what he said, including that one person's spam is another person's content or something like that. No, it's a monetary network, and I think we can identify what spam is. It's not sort of this very relative, like you'll um, free for all where anybody can put in anything. I think it's right to keep it a monetary network and not turn it into a shitcoin like Ethereum. So that part, I mean, that's not to say that like I don't like Antonopoulos. I'm very grateful, for example, that he recommended me for O'Reilly before I published that book, and he was instrumental in a lot of his early stuff. But honestly, like this take isn't original and it's what the core devs have been saying. I still don't understand why it had to go to 100,000, the default had to go to 100,000 bytes, or why there were multiple op returns, or why they decided to change the minimal fee to 0.1 sats per vbyte. None of those things seem justified to me, and none of those things seem reasonable to me. And those are the questions that I've had long discussions with. I don't know if you've checked out any of me and Tone's series on this, but there will be more on that coming in the future. But yeah, I don't agree with Andreas on this.
It does seem like he might be saying that Bitcoin's also a data network sending around the transactions. So if you're attaching data and then you're paying for the data, if you paid for the data, then it's not spam. And then we don't have to have the developers censoring things, which, like you said, could lead to abuse. Jesse, Dr. Orangepill, your thoughts on Andreas Antonopoulos' take, as well as the general Knots debate?
All right, so I'll start by saying I'm not a coder, and I don't go that deep into the coding of Bitcoin. So, but having said that, in a very general sense, I probably would be a little more on the left of this one too. Simply state thinking that Bitcoin's open source. I mean, it's the people's network. I mean, whatever it's gonna, if it gets through, if it's working and the system's not going down, and people can prune, from what I understand, so you don't have to accept the trash if you don't want to. And if most people decide they don't want to accept the trash, they'll just prune it out, and it might only live on 3 nodes or something. It'll be a choice of the people that are running the nodes. It's a choice of the people that are sort of managing the network in a sense. So in that sense, I'm willing to just kind of sit back and let it happen and see, and whatever happens is I'm gonna have to assume is the right thing. I wasn't around for the fork wars, but in that case, I would have had to have said the same thing. Like whatever happens in the end, that's what was supposed to happen. I don't know. I can't go beyond that. So I don't like the idea of it. I think it's kind of silly in a lot of ways. But I mean, like he said, if it is to me trash, and probably most people trash, like I don't want people put like it would obviously you don't like there you could, who knows what kind of shit you can put. I don't know exactly how it works. You attach a JPEG to 1 Satoshi or something, and it has an extra message to it, and then you send that around like an NFT. It sounds ridiculous. Use one of the other shit coins, whatever, for that. But if that's not what you're going to do, and if it's within the rules of the protocol, then that's just what it's going to be, and I'm not gonna go to war over it or anything. I mean, I use Bitcoin. I love it. It works as long as it keeps working. I think it's just going to be what it is. And I'm open to it like that, in a sort of libertarian sense, I guess you could say.
It does seem like part of the core argument is that ordinals and inscriptions are kind of jammed into the side of the code. If they enlarged op return, people could store them properly in the code. As Andreas is saying, we could then prune them off, not keep them with the main blockchain. Maybe this is a debate about nothing. The data exists, but no one ends up carrying it around. So is it really part of the blockchain?
But you have to.
Go ahead,
You
John.
have to. If you want initial block download and you want to verify stuff, somebody needs to supply it to you. So that's kind of like the pruning argument isn't really there, because you still need to bootstrap new nodes and things like that. You can't just ignore it. Those are all parts of the validation of a transaction. The signature is over the op return field, among other things. So it's you need it. You can't just ignore it. That's doesn't work that way.
So in that case, what it extends the the number of gigs of the overall chain or something like that? Does it
No,
over?
I mean, there's still a block size limit, but you can't just say, oh, you can prune it away. You need people to keep that data, otherwise you can't validate the whole thing. That's just sort of like going against the ethos of Bitcoin. You need to verify, not trust. And for verification, you need all of the data. And if you don't have, if not enough nodes carry that data, then it gets easier to subvert, right? So it's not a great argument. Oh, like those that don't like it can prune it away. That doesn't that doesn't carry water.
It does seem like Andreas is arguing maybe for a second level on top of Bitcoin, but that's not great. As Jimmy's saying, you'd still have to go back and verify at the initial level if you do a ground up build of anything, and then you're trusting the second level to promote that. So Josh Shigala, I think we have lots of people disagreeing with Andreas on the panel today. Where do you fall on the Knots debate?
Well, I've always found the spam debate really interesting ever since, Eric Voorhees launched Satoshi Dice, back in like 2012, because he was massively blamed for sending too many little bits of dust constantly around because people were sending single sats into his betting thing, and then it was sending lots of sats back out. It was just spamming the network, and it was fascinating because here we have a protocol that was meant to send money, and it was, to Jimmy's point, I don't know if people know what spam is, because the debate is if you pay for it, then and it's allowed by the rules, then it's fine. And I guess it comes down to saying, okay, well, where do we want as a community of miners and nodes and users? Where do we want this to go? Do we want to keep it purely as a store of value for larger bits of value and not for anything else? And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to that. For me, I like the fact, like one of the things that I really like about Ethereum is being able to build decentralized exchanges. As you know, of course, decentralized is a very vague term in that sense, but it's more decentralized than a centralized exchange. Let's put it that way. And so the ability to actually not have to trust a centralized exchange and just do a quick trade with no KYC or no nothing into some other token is pretty useful. And so whether it's if you want to trade from Tether back to Bitcoin or whatever it is that you want to do, I think those things have a lot of merit, and it would be good to see decentralized exchanges run on the Bitcoin network. And I'm not even sure if, because I've been a little bit poorly for a while with my health, so I haven't kept up with everything, but I do find the spam issue really an interesting issue. What is spam? And for me, it came the original argument was always, well, if you've paid for it, then it's not spam, because spam comes from people not paying anything and sending out billions of emails, and that's spam because there's no cost to destroying millions of people's inboxes. Yeah.
Let's move on to the exit question. Meta question. Looking at the larger issue, Andreas returning to the scene, finally taking a stand, something that we faulted him for during the block debate back when he was more like Switzerland, suddenly on both sides of everything, very neutral. Now he takes a stand. Perhaps part of his reputation was that he didn't take stands. He stayed out of politics. Now he's taken one. Do you think it was good for him to return, especially so late in the debate? We'd already talked about this issue and over. I didn't want to bring it back, but it is Andreas talking about it. Robert Allen, what do you think? Was it good for Andreas to check in? And again, he is, expressing his opinions, his views here.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of become irrelevant to Bitcoin in recent years, so I don't really know if it makes that much difference what he says. He's kind of moved on to Ethereum and whatever else he's doing. So, but I mean, some people will listen to him, I guess.
Jimmy Song, what do you think about Andreas coming back?
Well, the thing is, he hasn't been around for a while, and he hasn't been on these shows and stuff. And the thing is, we've had multiple cohorts of new Bitcoiners that have come in since then. They don't know anything about him. It's the old fogies here, right? The OGs here that know about him, not really anybody else. And I don't think we're really getting influenced by him at this point. So I kind of agree with Robert. He's not really his opinion on this issue. I'm not sure matters all that much.
It is hard to say that he has the same influence that he used to have. He mainly puts out tutorials. As Jimmy says, he mainly stays in kind of this Andreas sphere over there. I haven't seen much of since he unfollowed everyone on Twitter, which I thought was just kind of rude. Jess C., what do you think about Andreas returning for this issue?
I say that's just like your opinion, man. It's just a dude with an opinion. Bitcoin's too big for any one person to mean anything anymore. I don't think anybody, I don't even think Michael Saylor means anything really when he says anything anymore. So it's you need thousands of people to all sort of agree on something for it to, and probably tens of thousands. So like whatever. But it was an articulate argument for my, at least hearing it and not knowing the depth of it. I just thought, okay, it made sense. But what Jimmy said made sense. So I'm not saying either one's right. It's just I'll listen to it because it's useful for someone like me to hear both sides.
Yeah, I certainly don't think that either side would think less of him for expressing this opinion. It's a perfectly fair opinion, whether you disagree with it. But it is like, it's kind of like Linus in Linux. He can come back and say whatever he wants, but the project has moved on. It's not like the Bitcoin core where they have control of the repos and they can change the code. Andreas can't change the code. He can advocate for it, but he can't do it. Josh Shigala, what do you think about Andreas coming back? It's actually been a good question, I think.
Welcome back. It's good to see. It's good to see him. He really disappeared, and I think it took a toll on him because Bitcoin got extremely toxic for a long time with all the scaling stuff and all of this. But then also, I don't know. I mean, he got very intense. I was very anti-vax through that whole ordeal, and he was pro, and so I don't know. That whole thing really split a lot of people into the left and right camps. For some reason, the left would right into vaccines and big pharma. I don't understand, but yeah, welcome back, man, or whatever. I don't care. I've always liked Andreas. I like, yeah, all good.
It is great to see him again, and I do wish he was on this show and other shows. I always enjoyed him on Joe Rogan and kind of being a representative of Bitcoin in the larger sphere. But like you say, Josh, Jimmy was saying as well, we've kind of grown beyond that. We really do have professional financial people who go on shows and talk about it, other things like that. Having Andreas, having a programmer type person is great, but he didn't do it, and I'm not sure they're even asking anymore. But let's move on to issue 4. Thinking about giving Bitcoin as a Christmas gift? Read this first. How are you going to give it to them? Are you going to give them a hardware wallet? Are you going to give them the magic words? What if they type them into some screen somewhere? How would you give Bitcoin in a gift? And would you advise it to other people? Jimmy Song, what about Bitcoin as a Christmas gift?
Well, I think giving people Bitcoin when they don't really get it is kind of a recipe for disaster. I know a lot of people gave away, paper wallets and things like that circa 2013 and so on. And like a lot of that Bitcoin is just completely missing at this point, right? It's just money thrown down a black hole or something. I still remember, I think Jeremy Rubin, who's a core developer, when he was in school, they had this thing where they gave everybody at MIT like $100 in Bitcoin. And these are very technical, very capable people. And most of them like just ended up cashing out and going buying sushi or something, right? Like they
I
didn't
remember
they didn't
that. That's amazing.
yeah, I mean
Totally
that's
forgot
what's that's what happens with people that don't really understand the value of it. So I would much rather have you gift them something like the Bitcoin Standard by Safety Namus, or one of my books, or something where they can understand Bitcoin first, and then once they're convinced, they'll buy it on their own. And that's much better anyway. People generally don't value things that they get for free. Witness like every airdrop ever, right? Like people don't like them, or I mean, people don't value them. They like getting things for free, but they don't necessarily put the value that we do on them. So I say don't do it. And if they show some initiative, some agency in going towards Bitcoin, help them out. But like short of that, I really don't think it's a good idea.
It is hard to see when people haven't been interested for so long why they'd be interested now. Maybe it's better to give them your advice and your time, teach them how to set up a hardware wallet rather than giving them one. Jess C., what do you think? Bitcoin as a gift in 2025?
So Jimmy's argument is very valid, and I actually very much agree with him. However, for the last 2 years, I have basically exclusively for my nieces and nephews, I love saying I'm going to give you 100,000 Satoshi. I just love watching their eyes get big when they hear they're going to get 50,000 or 100,000. And so if they're over 18, actually even a couple that are under 18, I just said, hey, look, I got it. When you are able to get Cash App, I'll send it to you. So I've given all of my nieces and nephews pretty much Bitcoin for the last couple of years for Christmas and birthdays. And some of them still have it. They hold it on their wallet, and they'll check in every once in a while, or they'll ask me about it. So that's kind of cool. See, it creates some curiosity for the younger generation. And some of them sold it. They told me, I said, I told them when I gave it to them, do whatever you want with it. It's yours. It's money. It's your money. You can sell it now. You can sell it later. Eventually, you'll probably will want to buy something with it. It is supposed to be money. So yeah, I do that, and I have fun with it. And it's kind of fun with me and my nieces and nephews. And we have Cash Apps, so I can just like clink it right over to them pretty fast. And it's kind of fun for them to see it, load up in their wallet. So for that reason, but like Jimmy said, I don't think I'd go around and give it to my aunt and uncle or anybody my age. For the kids though, I like to do it.
It is neat to think now that we have apps like Cash App and PayPal, other things where you can accept the Bitcoin. Then if you decide, I'd rather have a book or a video game, you could trade it out very easily. Used to be a lot harder to do that. In a way, you're kind of just giving them money, but you are giving them a chance at the Bitcoin, as you said.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good.
Yeah,
Josh Shigala, would you give Bitcoin as a gift in 2025? Like Jimmy said, I think we've given a lot of Bitcoin to taxi drivers and bartenders and people at conferences, and I'll bet a lot of it's lost.
To back up Jimmy, I always tipped my cleaning lady in Bitcoin, and then years later she's like, she lost it all, and that sucked. And her husband was quite clever, quite an intelligent guy. He was a computer guy, and lost it all because when you give something for free, it doesn't. It's like, oh, whatever. And that was really sad. I also given, Bitcoin away to nieces, to your point there, Jess. And eventually, she let her boyfriend at the time take care of it all because he was more techie. And then when they split up, he took it all. And then my niece has nothing. And it just pissed me off. I'm like, what? This clown took all the Bitcoin I gave you? What the hell? And Jimmy's spot on. Books, education, understanding monetary systems, and hey, if they put it down, because that's also a chance. If they put that book down rather than reading it, hey, you missed your chance. That's fate. So I'm with Jimmy on that one.
Another nice gift as we come up on the holiday season is always 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Just a good basic book, how to focus and do tasks. I also like getting things done and feeling good. They're just, basic books. If you give people, and again, like Josh said, though, it's so hard. You give the person the right book, they still won't read it. They have to have the interest to go through that door to keep going down the path, whether it's Bitcoin information or just how to have a better life, how to improve things. And finally, Robert Allen, what do you think? The panel, a lot of Grinches on this panel. not seeing a lot of Christmas spirit out there, Satoshi spirit. What do you think, Robert? Should they give people Bitcoin for Christmas?
I think it just depends on the person that you're gifting to. You know, if they're younger and it's a small amount of money, and they have Cash App and they're not going to lose it because they're not even going to have custody, it's pretty low risk. They'll probably either use it for something in the next few weeks, or maybe it'll spark some curiosity, and then that could lead to something. I gifted Thank God for Bitcoin, actually one of Jimmy's books, to all of my dad's brothers and sisters. He's one of 10, so 9 uncles and aunts got that book. One of them got into Bitcoin, and this was a few years back. So, miles may vary. You never know. I think it's good to try to help people, educate people. If you give a man a fish, he's going to eat once. If you teach someone to fish, they can, eat for a lifetime. So yeah, knowledge is probably more useful generally for people, but even then they may not read the book. So
Still,
but we gotta try.
1 out of 10 is pretty good. Converting anybody is good at all at this scale. So a gift well given, I think. Let's move on to
I
the
don't
next.
regret it.
Yeah, right on. Let's move on to the next story. We have some breaking news shared with us by Jimmy Song just this morning. Tether submits proposal to acquire Juventus Football Club. This is a major football team, not like the one that the guy owns near Manchester or whatever. This is one of the largest in the world. Tether has some of the most money in the world. This makes sense. This is a stable thing to buy, like real estate in London or San Francisco. Let's go to Jimmy Song first. What do you think about Tether submitting a proposal for Juventus Football Club? This is huge. Like this is like the New York Yankees of soccer. This is a major. Americans don't quite understand the scale of what we're talking about here. But Jimmy, what do you think about Tether's latest announcement here?
Yeah, and you have to understand how big Juventus is in Serie A. They've won like 30 titles, and they've various trophies. They've been European champions. They've had some of the biggest legends in the sport play for them, including Cristiano Ronaldo for a couple of years way back when. And they're really, really good. And I'm certain that this is at least in part because the people that run Tether are Italian, right? Like you have Paolo Ardino and Giovanni and I mean Giancarlo and so on, and they grew up with this. So to get a chance to buy it would be like if you grew up in New York and you get a chance to buy the Yankees. That's basically what this is. And I suspect that it'll be really cool if they do. I'm sure Tether would be the main sponsor on their shirts if they do buy them. They might be that anyway, because if I understand correctly, they're already minority owners. And I believe they also sponsor Lugano FC, which is a smaller club in the Swiss league, which makes sense because that's where they're based. So. Yeah, it would be big news. I don't necessarily think this means anything for Bitcoin adoption. The people that watch Juventus aren't necessarily looking to send remittances to anybody. Really, like if you've been to an Italian soccer game, and I have, it's more like a religion, right? Like I still remember going to Napoli and watching a Champions League match between Napoli and Ajax, and they play maybe like 3-4 times like ever, right? Like they don't. One's a Dutch team, one's an Italian team, but the level of vitriol those fans had for the away team fans was, I mean, my kids were watching. I'm like, okay, don't pay attention to the motions that they're doing because whatever it is, it's completely obscene. So. Italian soccer or Italian football, I should say, is a very passionate thing, and I suspect that this is part of that passion. And obviously, Tether has done enormously well. They're making billions and billions of dollars, and this is now within their purview of going and getting the most successful club in Italian Serie A history. And of course, they've had a few down years. I think they're 7th on the table last time I checked. So they're not doing great this year. So it's buy low, sell high, maybe, or buy low and then keep it, something like that. So it's an interesting story, and I suspect they're going to pursue it.
It's an amazing result for Italy, as Jimmy's saying. It's like they're buying Ferrari or backstopping it. We heard recently that perhaps the Genius Act in the United States would force the United States and companies like that, Tether, to own and buy US bonds in the same way. Having an Italian company like Tether prop up Italian soccer is like the backbone of society, the backbone of civilization, like they're propping up the Lincoln Monument here. It's smart, and I also think it's going to be smart money. Lots of people make tons of money on sports teams, especially if Jimmy's saying they're buying it in a down market. I think these are the guys where the field goes below the field, and it like constructs like a transformer, and they have lights down there, and then they have the rock concerts or whatever on a different surface. This league is in a whole nother world. It's probably like buying the Yankees and the Dodgers at the same time. Jess C, what do you think about Tether making a major move perhaps for Juventus?
Yeah, super cool. I think it's really great. My thought is normalizing stable coins is a good thing for the overall ecosystem of all. So to me, it's good for Bitcoin eventually. I think that stable coins, like you were saying, are going to do a lot as far as buying treasuries and stuff in the United States soon. And it's going to bring in the killer apps soon. I think whatever making payments easier, maybe offsetting credit card costs. So being able to text people money, that kind of stuff, all the things you can't quite do yet. I think these stable coins are going to bring that in. And once they're in, then everything else is going to kind of start globbing onto it. So it's almost like the way chat rooms started began the whole internet. And then people just started, everything started piling in. So it's the beginning of the tidal wave. And we're watching in real time, so it's really awesome.
It is pretty awesome, but I do agree with Jimmy. Having Tether on the shirt might not convert any to Bitcoin or even sell anything for Tether, but it does sound like a pretty sweet shirt. I kind of want one. Josh Shigala, a stable coins buying a soccer team. Are we in the wrong business or what?
Hey, I think Pink Floyd called it with a new car caviar 4-star daydream. I think I'll buy myself a football team. And it goes down well. Yeah, I remember what were they called? They've Bit Gallippi. What
Tony
somehow they
Blippi and
become irrelevant.
BitPay. They did the
BitPay, yeah,
Oh,
BitPay.
BitPay.
They had the big football, the big stadium, and
they sponsored one college football team or one game, and it was supposed to be like a 3 or a 5 pack, and they backed out on the rest of the deal.
Yeah, so there you go. It's been slightly done before. I guess this is a major upgrade.
Quite a big upgrade. They own the whole team. Be pretty amazing, yeah.
Well, Tether made a very, very dangerous bet, and it could have gone very badly for him. Back, I don't know how many cycles ago it was, but they basically Bitcoin was tanking. It tanked all the way down, and they took all their reserves that they had in bank. $1 equals 1 Tether, and they just put it all into Bitcoin. And then Bitcoin started going up, and ever since then, I remember people saying, yeah, but do they have reserves? I'm like, yeah, they got reserves. Don't worry about it. They're well over reserve now. But it could have gone south. It could have gone way down. I guess they would have held through it because at that time it was still still now it's very intransparent. But now they've diversified into like government bonds and all these other things. So it's but nonetheless, whatever. Football teams. Let's go.
Fancy cars, Sega Genesis, all the things. I remember, Josh, people were all mad when SBF was destroying the industry and they took FTX off of the arena and everyone said, oh, crypto.com, you'll be next. Crypto.com still on the arena. And it sounds like Tether is going to be on Juventus, which again, these large companies are making large plays, not like SBF at all. Finally, let's go to Robert. What do you think about Tether buying themselves a football team?
Well, I'm happy for Paulo. This is like a local boy makes good story. Feels good. Happy for him. It's amazing. Why not? And I think it's good for Bitcoin. I actually do think that there's a path that people can take into stable coins, understanding these technologies, and then especially as I think we start to see Bitcoin eventually, Tether and other stable coins on Bitcoin, through Lightning payments and so on. So I think there's going to be a natural sort of progression from one to the other over time, and at least that's my hope. But either way, as far as I can see, Paulo is a Bitcoiner. They hold a lot of Bitcoin. They are doing a lot of good for Bitcoiners and Bitcoin. So yeah, it's exciting. It's a great story.
It has been incredible. And as Josh said, at one point, somebody made a huge bet on Bitcoin, and I can't wait to read the book. There's going to be one of those behind the scenes business books, and they're going to be so and so suggested this, and then we made the move, and everything was different from then. We have one more breaking story, also provided by Jimmy Song. Terraform's Do Kwon sentenced to 15 years in prison for fraud. The Terraform Labs co-founder pleaded guilty to conspiracy and wire fraud in August. I guess he didn't get the memo and hasn't sent his Trump coin yet. Jimmy Song, what do you think about Terra Labs founder going down? We've seen so many other people pay the fine and get out of jail. I'm not sure what happened in this case. What do you think?
Well, he pissed off a whole ton of people, and you remember Mike Novogratz got the lunatic tattoo on his arm. I mean, when you get a billionaire to tattoo his arm, you're in pretty deep. I honestly, he was never an insider. He was a scammer from day one. He misrepresented lots of things. In other words, he's not really that different than a typical shitcoin scammer. He just had the unfortunate, um, I guess, luck of pissing off the wrong people. There were a ton of people all over the world that got screwed by him, and it happened in such spectacular fashion. I don't know if you guys remember the day that the peg sort of like decoupled, but the Luna coin went down like 99.999% in like a single day. And there was this sort of like arbitrage play that all these bots were making, and he couldn't stop it. And it was just such a spectacular fall that I think a lot of the people got so pissed that they were out for blood, particularly the people in Korea. And then when he started like traveling around and trying to dodge the law and stuff, I mean that's when it was really over. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, he's not nearly the worst. I think there are lots and lots of people that also belong in jail that, like Thomas said, like got away with it by just paying some fine or whatever. Uh, but this is kind of the world that we live in, where if you have enough political connections, you can kind of get away with stuff. And it's sad, but rule of law is kind of dead. You don't have fair justice for all anymore. You just sort of have people that you piss off if they happen to be powerful enough. Even if you didn't do anything wrong, they'll still kind of get you. And this is where the bad times come into play, right? We were talking about. I mean, everyone knows that meme of like strong times create weak men create bad times create strong men, and strong men create good times. So like we're in that like bad times phase where there's no rule of law, or I mean it's breaking down, civilization is breaking down, and this is all due to fiat money, honestly. And yeah, I'm glad that justice was served, at least in this case, even though it didn't necessarily come about it in the best way. But at least it happened, and I hope much like him and SBF, I hope a lot of these other people that did scam. I think there's the OneCoin founder that's in Britain right now. There's Mashinsky, maybe even, and of course, like the scammer of all scammers, Craig S. Wright. All of them belong in prison. And I hope that maybe Bitcoin brings back some of that justice and fairness and back to civilization again, instead of these Nietzschean power games that seem to be ruling almost all of these countries at the moment.
It's so hard to keep track. I think that the Celsius guy is going to be punished. Like you said, Jimmy, he used a lot of the libertarian language about how they were going to maintain the peg no matter what. Meanwhile, I think that CZ from Binance is okay. He's paid something to the somebody. Justin Sun from Tron seems to be okay. He bought a banana and he paid for somebody. Ross Ulbrecht has been freed. We don't know what happened there. On the other side, OneCoin's still on the run. That guy who scammed Mt. Gox, and by scam, he pushed refreshed when he withdrew money, and that sent him more money. So he pushed refresh a bunch of times, like anyone would do. Do Kwon in jail, SBF in jail, Samurai Wallet people in jail, and that Theranos lady's still in jail. But we don't know what's going to happen in the future. A lot of pardons seem to be for sale, really low prices, a lot happening. Jesse, what do you think about Do Kwon and Terra Labs going down? Like Jimmy said, somebody's got to go to jail eventually. Someone's got to set an example for the rest of us to stay out of there.
Yeah, well, I'll just quickly agree with Jimmy. That's it. I mean, what he said was exactly how I feel and what I believe. I think the biggest surprise for me on this story was that he wasn't sentenced yet. I was like, oh, he just got sentenced. So that was sort of the biggest surprise that he was even in the news again. But and the tattoo, everything, it always brings back the memory of the tattoo, which it puts a little smile on my face, which I don't know. I think it's funny. But yeah, I'll just agree with Jimmy and leave it there.
There are so many scams and so many cycles, it's hard to even remember, but it does seem like something from last season. Josh Segala, what do you think about Do Kwon being sentenced?
Yeah, I'm going to take another side here. I think it comes down to, in the crypto space, there's a lot of people trying different theories. And look, I was the first to call out this guy when they released their white paper at LeBigConf. I said, this is something like this. I said, something like this will fail massively, and the government's going to put on their superhero costume and come in and regulate the whole space because of it. But I think that there's, people like the OneCoin scam. It's a true ultimate scam. They didn't build anything. They scammed a whole lot of people. It was a Ponzi where they paying old people with new money, not even paying them, like just putting a number on the screen. Outright horrible things of stealing money. Then there's people, idiots, investing in shit that they don't understand, and then blaming the people. And so I don't know which side this guy falls on, whether he was just dumb and thought, hey, if you put your own shit coin to back up a stable coin to $1, let's say they're 50 cents each, these Luna, hey, that equals $1. And if it goes down in value, you will just print four of them and it still equals $1. And this is how it just doesn't work. But look, like billionaires and large VCs thought it might work as well, because they're also either stupid, which I don't think so, but maybe I do. I guess what I'm trying to say is that what's the difference between a scammer and an entrepreneur building a startup? The difference really is they both have nothing. They're both trying to raise money. You have to believe that one of them is actually legitimately wanting to build the thing that they thought they're going to build. And the other one from the get-go is like, I'm not going to build any of this. I'm just going to tell him what he needs to hear. And, Terra Luna, as terrible as it was, as shitty as it was actually a thing that was working and people were using it and stuff. It probably had a whole bunch of Ponzinomics, and I'm not sure about that, and that's probably bad. But and for sure the 20% APY, I don't know where that was coming from, and there was this. It's just terribly built architecture, economically speaking. But I guess if I was the judge, I'd try to think: was this guy just really bad at economic theory and thought this might work, and then people jumped on it, and because they lost their shirt in an experiment, they now have to find the scapegoat and you go to prison. Look, Sam Bankman-Fried, total fraud, needs to go to jail. OneCoin, total fraud, needs to go to jail. But there's some people that are trying to build something and it's just, they're just stupid at economics. We're going to try this. You know, and look at all the meme coins. They have literally no use at all. And people invest in them and it goes down and they're like, oh, well, it is what it is. But I would say the people that invested in Terra Luna also need to take some accountability for themselves and say, I invested in total rubbish, in absolute rubbish. And there was a reason why I never touched that filth once, was because it for me, it was an obvious rubbish architecture. You know, I mean, I've been longer than a lot of people, so maybe that's, you know, I've seen it before with what Dan Larimer was building and stuff, these algorithmic stable coins. I'd seen it before fail, so maybe that's why I could see that one fail and others didn't. But at the same time, I think a lot of people were so greedy to get the next Bitcoin or the next this and that, they didn't stop to actually learn about what they were buying. And then because it turned to shit, you know, then they take their vitriol out on this one guy. I don't know. That's just my take. Take it or leave it.
It can be so hard to tell, Josh, like you're saying, whether they started off wanting to scam, whether halfway through they figured out it wouldn't work, so then they became scammers, whether it was just a bad idea to begin with and they're not good at math. There's so many paths in and out of this. And then some of them, they even work. And I've heard this in startups where, you know, I get all mad because we can't automate things from the beginning. And then they show these startups. There was one recently with AI. And they, of course, claimed it was AI, but it was 5 guys in a back room typing in answers. And they did that for 3 months. They, quote, bootstrapped the startup. After that, they had the real money to buy real AI. And from them, they started being a real company. A lot of these, they think they're just bootstrapping and that they'll become real. And then they fail and they lose everyone's money and it's a huge disaster. But obviously, this guy lost the wrong people's money. Let's go to Robert.
He lost
Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah.
And what do you think?
A lot, way too much. Yeah.
What do you think, Robert, about Terra and Do Kwon finally being sentenced to prison?
Yeah, I stopped following like crypto probably around 2018. So I don't really know that much about this case. I just moved to Bitcoin and stopped even paying attention to the rest of it, which I think has given me a lot of peace and satisfaction in my life. So I don't regret that. But I don't, I guess as I think about the last couple of years, what it feels like to me is like, sure, there's scammers and people that are, you know, in the quote crypto world that have done bad things. But it almost feels to me like the governments, on the one hand, have allowed these things to happen so they can have these like scapegoats that they can then, you know, trot out and have a trial and pretend that they're, you know, keeping, you know, law and order and so on. You know, almost like let the kids play and have a little fun, and we'll, you know, we'll put some of these people in prison. Meanwhile, like no one went to prison, you know, after the housing crisis and the market crashed, and you know, there's huge amounts of fraud and just huge corruption, and you know, people lost their homes and their livelihoods. I mean, so yeah, I guess I'm just sort of echoing Jimmy. Like the world is so corrupt and broken, and so I think the powers that be just kind of let these things happen, and then in kind of yeah, it's like bread and circuses. It's a diversion. You let and yeah, some people lose some money, and some people have a fun time. It's the new casino world, and yeah, there's going to be winners and losers, and but in some ways, it is kind of sad that a guy who's yeah, he's probably not the best dude ever, but he's not going to be with his kid. That's pretty sad. And meanwhile, you got people that are probably, you know, orders of magnitude more corrupt who are running the world. So here we are.
It is strange to see who picks the winners and the losers, and it never seems to be the very well-connected people who end up as the losers. So maybe he just didn't pay his insurance this month. But we're running out of time, so let's move on to predictions or story of the week. Jimmy Song, are you ready with a prediction or a story of the week? Maybe just what you've been up to lately? Oh, gotta unmute.
Sorry about
No
that.
worries. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, so the story of the week for me is this. Well, I don't really actually have a story of the week, but I will sort of rattle about some random stuff that I've been thinking about, particularly this whole thing about AI model collapse. And if you don't know what that is, it's this idea that AI trained on AI outputs, uh, as it gets more and more training on AI inputs, right? Like AI produced outputs that are its input, it suffers something called model collapse. And this is something that where you'll see an image and it looks less and less real the more and more it trains on AI produced output. And this is, I think, a hard limit on what AI can do, because essentially what AI is doing is it's predicting the next word, but it can't possibly know all of them because there's just too much information on the internet. So what it does is it compresses a lot of it and throws a lot of that away, right? Like a lot of answers uh, that are on the fringes that somebody posts only once or something like that. A lot of that information gets thrown away, and that's ultimately why this model collapse happens, because you have this long tail of information. Now, all that is to say that I think the same thing is happening in the financial world, where you have a form of model collapse where people are efficient, make things more and more efficient in a narrower and narrower band, and you get what Nassim Taleb calls black swans, where these are tail events that are not accounted for because people optimize for those things. So that's just something that I've been thinking a lot about. And I did have a podcast last week about it with a guy named Copernican, how it's also at an ideological level what a lot of people are going through, because these AI models are not that dissimilar from how brains work. And unfortunately, a lot of people train on 12 years of government education, and we've had, maybe 5 or 6 generations of that. And unsurprisingly, they believe really idiotic, stupid stuff that anybody 100 years ago would have said, "You're crazy. How can you not know what a woman is? How can you not know that?" Inflation is theft, stuff like that. So those are things that I've been thinking about. That's not really a story, although there is a story. I guess you can go look up Copernican, Urban Bugman, and a unified theory of model collapse. So you can go look up that story.
Now, I think the real question, Jimmy, is the AI model collapsing in the financial world? I think a lot of people thought they were going to make a lot of money on AI. They made incredibly large investments in NVIDIA and other companies to get this money. And now they're saying that beyond the $20 a month you pay for ChatGPT, they're not sure where the rest of this money is going to come from. What do you think about the financial AI bubble popping potential?
Yeah, I mean that was sort of like a massive VC bet from newly printed fiat money, largely because they didn't have anywhere else to deploy it. And this is how VCs work. Whenever they see a hot industry, they just pour insane amounts of money into it. And a lot of it doesn't work out. And I suspect maybe there'll be a few companies that come out okay, kind of like the dot-com bubble. But I don't think they're going to be nearly as productive. I suspect it's kind of like what you were saying. It's search engine 2.0, just get better answers. I hardly use Google anymore. I just ask Grok or whatever, hey, what's this or whatever, instead of doing searches for it. And that's it. So it's kind of cannibalistic in that regard. It might displace Google, or Google might displace itself with Gemini or something like that. But I don't think it's this massive quantum leap that people are thinking. Those things are going to have to come in the real world, like with modular nuclear reactors or something like that, and not any of this. Hey, we have a slightly better mental model or whatever. I mean, who knows though? I mean, it's possible that you take away a lot of bureaucratic jobs or something, but I don't know if there's too much money in that, because they're all from the Cantillon effect anyway.
Well, and everyone's heard that they're going to take your job away, and they don't want that. But I agree with Jimmy. It's mainly I just reformat data from the search engine into a grid, or gather a bunch of data, combine it together. Just like with the Amazon Alexa, you mainly use it to turn the lights on and off. It doesn't seem to do much else. Let's go to Jess C. Dr. Orangepill. Do you have a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead.
Sure. Just quickly, yeah, as we exit 2025, we were talking about some good books. By the way, Jimmy, I'm going to read Thank God for Bitcoin. I look forward to reading that. I haven't read it yet, so I'm going to dive into that really soon. And so I will mention a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. which is, among other things, about the way people think and human psychology. And one of the main points of that book, or one of the very many points of that book, is that there are certain things like playing chess or tennis or any kind of thing where there's set rules in the game, even like doing gymnastics, because gravity has certain rules that as you do it, you get better at it. And so people think that people that study things automatically get better at them over time. But there's certain things, because the rules are not formatted, you don't get better at. And those things, one of those most important things to understand is predicting the future. So pundits are especially bad at this, and also people who predict like what's going to happen in the future with Bitcoin, for example. So for anybody watching this, I would just say it's a human psychological trick to think that anybody has some better idea about what's going to happen in the future with any kind of pricing or any that kind of stuff. So the best thing to do is to kind of sit back and observe it and just sort of enjoy the show. Having said that, Bitcoin to 150 next year, money printer go burr, crash in October.
Woo, woo, there we go. Thanks, Jesse. Let's go to Josh Segala for a prediction or a story of the week. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, like Jimmy, I've just sort of had thoughts on stuff and not really anything else. But one thing I am obsessing about is what comes after transistors in chip manufacturing, because transistors, we really reached the bottom. All we can do is really scale now and like add two chips together and scale outwards like that. We can't scale down much further because of physics. But so I'm looking at other things of what comes after transistors, and I think it's a good thing for people to look at, because it might be that very, very, very early adopter thing of being able to buy some companies that are doing R&D in this field, and that is photonics, where rather than using electrons, you're using photons, which is a lot cooler than using electrons. So you're sending photons down chips, and people building chips. They're a lot bigger than microchips right now, but still very small, and memory can be done within the chip, which is really interesting with a photon. So not only can you send a photon down, but you can send different wavelengths, different colors, basically down. So you can do multiple calculations at the same time on the same circuitry, which is also fascinating, and way less heat. And the main thing that people are fighting is heat. And that's why they want to stick data centers in space and shit. So photonics, the other thing is spintronics, and using the spin of electrons rather than on and off switches. So how the is the electron spinning left or right, and that's either 1 or 0. And so this is also a really interesting space after standard transistors. Yeah, so check out those things if you guys are interested in futuristic tech and what might come next. It's always good to look forward where the hockey puck's going. I totally agree with Jimmy. It's been my concern for a long time that model collapse is something that was very real and very true. The only thing we've seen in AI that's really moved AI forward is reasoning models. And if it wasn't for them just saying, hey, let's just have AI talk to itself for a little bit before it sends the final message, if it wasn't for that, we really wouldn't have moved forward that much, apart from maybe a little bit of pre-training and stuff. Really, it hasn't gone that much better. We're seeing some betterments in AI because of the whole reasoning models, but generally speaking, we're not doing like GPT 2 to 3 to 4 jumps anymore. We're doing like micro little bits, and plus the model collapse stuff is very, very real. And look, anyone that jumps on the internet now just sees slop after slop after slop, particularly in video, but elsewhere. And I don't know, maybe there'll be a resurgence in people writing little blog posts and little enclaves on the internet where you can find real people's opinions about real things and wacky stuff again. I don't know. Let's see.
I'd love to see a new handwritten internet, but then again, I would just think it's AI generated. But as for someone that enjoys using the AI quite a lot, but at the same time thinks it's going to kill us all, I'm excited if they can't train themselves. That's one of the most dangerous points, I think, towards AGI, is when the AI takes over, starts training itself. We don't know what it's doing. It's talking in the AI language to the other AIs. If they're having problems with that, good. Maybe we could just slow down a little and do it in a slightly safer way, which I'm sure is impossible because people need money, and the first one there gets the big pile of money. But if only we could do AI safely and not destroy humanity, that would be great. I saw an old joke on Seth Meyers recently, and they're like, NASA's #1 priority should be not blowing up the moon. And it was in reference to, unfortunately, I believe the Trump administration wants to put a nuclear reactor on the moon. It's probably just an idea. But still, you have to get it through the atmosphere. You have to get it on the moon, and it has to not explode at any of those times, or it would be a huge disaster. In the same way, I'd worry about that as well, the AI being the same kind of disaster. And so
yeah, and also the AI just lying directly into your face. Like so often, I'm seeing it more and more now, not less and less, which sucks. So generally you go to Perplexity, but Perplexity's only good because the internet's still slightly written by humans. The more, imagine you just go to Perplexity, you write some question and it links you to the source, and the source was written by AI, which lied to you. So,
well, and they just had a great video on that on Kirkazot, that science YouTube channel. And like you're saying, Josh, they had this old fact, and I want to try to remember what it was. It was like 9 out of 10 dentists recommend this or something. And they're like, let's find out who the 9 dentists were. And they go back through the steps, and they're like, yeah, it turns out there really was a quote. But there's also this complete second line that now being adopted by machines on machines, and it's just furthering the quote. And they think, yeah, if we look for this next time, we wouldn't be able to find the actual source. The fake quote has taken over.
Yeah, I mean, this is what model collapse is that you need new inputs, you need touch points with reality, you need actual creation, and AI models just don't do that. And when they do that, it's complete lies and like just poison for the AI training models. So already, I think there are estimates like 6.5% of the web is AI generated. It's already at a point where AI companies have to, sequester certain data sources to make sure that they're not AI generated, so they don't poison their own data set. And this is going to be a bigger and bigger problem. I think I've never believed that AI was ever going to be general. Just because there's no purpose or teleological purpose for any of these things. It's just code running, and it's a better autocomplete. That's what it is in the end. There are limits to this stuff because there's creativity that's required to generate new thought, and AI does not generate new thought. It's good at mashing up other things. I mean, they're using all kinds of weird techniques, right? Like if they want to know that to do math, they have like a Python interpreter in there for the code that they generate, and then they interpret it and make sure that it works, and then they give like the math answer if you're giving sort of stuff like that, so that they don't get these wrong. And it's like all these like little one-offs, because the model collapse or the lack of ability to do a lot of these fat tail problems is becoming more and more apparent. I think it just kind of gets worse over time, honestly.
I agree.
Again, it all links back to science fiction in Fall or Doge and Hell by Neil Stephenson. He talks about a world in the future where they had a lie about one of their friends. So they're like, well, we'll block this out with 100,000 or 1,000,000 other lies about you, and then no one will be able to find that original lie. It creates so much spam and dirt on the internet that eventually you need a real person to read your in feed and a real person to manage your out feed, like your Facebook or your Twitter or whatever, because there's just so much false information, and it really is everywhere. And we're getting there with AI generated stuff.
Yeah, but just to quickly, sorry, Robert, we keep on going on this, but what's interesting is to bring it back to the financial markets is that the entire S&P, all of it is being dragged up by these Mag 7 through the AI thing, and so this is why it's kind of it's kind of like Terra Luna. You've got a useful component. Oh wow, it's this stable coin. That's useful. And look, I can use it currently, and so it can fool you. And I think this is similar to AI. AI is like, it's super useful. It's fun. It's you can pump out a quick email to your landlord and whatever. You can do stuff, and so you see that and you go, this is really useful. This is the future. If this gets better, this is the future, absolutely. And it's going to take a whole lot of jobs and yada yada yada. But if we take into consideration, actually, it's way overcast, kind of like the dot-com bubble. Plus, it's not as good as what you think, because you start to see through the magic trick when you use it a lot. You start to see the magic trick if you use AI a lot. And then you kind of like, maybe this is all a trick. Now, if those Mag 7 start to decline, there's nothing holding it up. There's nothing holding it up further. And sadly, Bitcoin is so tied to the stock market these days that Bitcoin will also go down. And that's hence why I went against the Magic 8 Ball today, saying that if there is an AI correction, a huge one, then Bitcoin, like all of them, Bitcoin, gold, all of it will go down in the moment. But Bitcoin will come back because the money printers will be turned on, because politicians don't like to leave a bad legacy, and they'll just want to turn the money printers on to save flood the liquidity in, and then that's when Bitcoin will go and gold will go back up. But in the meantime, there's going to be a correction at some stage. When? Who knows? But it's just bound. It's just inevitable.
It's also worth noting that Time Magazine has just announced the person of the year this year is, quote, the architects of AI. And it has Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, the CEO of NVIDIA, CEO of OpenAI, and others sitting on an old beam like the old creators and Iron Men up above New York City when they were building it. Kind of a classic cover, but not sure how that's going to turn out for Time. They've had other questionable people of the year in the past. And Jimmy also sent in, this is what model collapse looks like. So you can see the person starts out, person on the left, number 1, and eventually becomes the image on the right, number 5. Jimmy, any more on model collapse that you'd like to say while we have this image up?
Yeah, so you can see if you start with 0% poison and never introduce any AI generated stuff, even by iteration 5, it's kind of okay. But even if you have like just 10%, by the time you get to the even the 3rd generation, it starts looking weird. And this is sort of what you would call in computer science overcompression, right? Like you lose just too much data, and it becomes very much cartoonish and unreliable very quickly. And I think we're kind of getting there, right? We're maybe the poison percentage currently is less than 10%, but even that is enough to kind of make things look really, really terrible.
And the Internet Archive will be worth so much more, because it will be a snapshot of real data made by humans from 2000.
They're already curating data sets, and it's interesting because AI companies have an incentive to know whether or not data was AI generated or not. So they're going to probably start watermarking things or something so that they can at least identify, okay, we can't train on this data, otherwise it's going to poison our data set, and we're not going to get the right models out of it. And we're approaching that real quick, and the thing is, it's like the open internet, there's just way too much data, and so much of it is already poisoned by AI. Too many people are using it. So I don't know. I suspect that it's a lot like fiat money, where a lot of people get excited because you get like the boom that you did in the 20s, but you also get Fed intervention and all kinds of depression in the 30s. Like the excitement is essentially borrowing from the future, and in this case, it's the laziness of everybody that doesn't want to put in the work to write or code or draw or whatever.
It is interesting that suddenly people are valuing human content, and now we can't find any. Many people have said the entire web will be fake soon. Everything on Twitter, not just the images, but the posts themselves, and it'll be almost impossible to find actual human content. Just because there'll be so much fake stuff around it. Let's go to Robert Allen for a prediction or a story of the week. And of course, we'd like to know your thoughts on AI too. We've actually talked quite a lot about AI here at the end. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, this is a pertinent topic for me. I married a Nigerian. I've been living in Nigeria now for a while, a couple years. And I've been building a software company. I've got a bunch of Nigerian developers working with me here. And it's been a pretty amazing experience. A lot of good people, and we've been using AI a bit, but I wouldn't. I'm maybe not as pessimistic as Jimmy is on it. Although I do think, yeah, I think it's highly subsidized industry, and it'll be interesting to see. Well, and what he shared in terms of poison is also interesting. Is it possible that unless they can kind of like freeze some of these models, do we end up in a situation where we actually have regression in the utility? I do think that thinking models are more useful. Claude Sonnet 4.5 thinking is pretty decent in my estimation as like a junior developer. I mean, you can't just blue sky give it some prompt and get some amazing application out of it. But if you have decent architecture already in place and you want some help in augmenting something or like writing unit tests, for example, it can do a fairly decent job. So I think there's a place for it. But you can also hurt yourself pretty quickly. And one thing I've noticed, which I'm sure is going to be more and more of an issue, is I've had to fire two developers because they were pure vibe coding, like just 100%. And very quickly, I could tell that they were not thinking at all. It's one thing to, yeah, use an autocomplete if you know what it's supposed to look like when you're done, but it's another thing entirely if you are just, outsourcing your brain. And so I think some people will be trying to skate or trying to, kind of punch above their pay grade by using AI, but that only works until someone realizes that you don't really know what you're doing. And so, but yeah, and I think, I mean, I feel like I'm hating the internet in general more and more because I do feel this gross, I mean, it's interesting. I have a girl that's working for me who was doing some writing for me, and she did an article. Well, she AI prompted an article, and I knew it was AI, and I was like, oh, I can't stand this. This is AI. Please, like, go write something. I don't want this. And then she worked on another thing, and she claims and swears that she only used the AI to help her with outlining the article, and then she wrote it. But I hated that too, and so now I'm like paranoid. I'm like, do I even know what's real versus what's AI? Like, it's yeah, it's kind of gross though, because it does feel um it just feels artificial, a lot of it. And I think that it's hard to like explain that or to really articulate it very easily, but or yeah, I mean maybe imagery or video is easier because you just have this sort of uncanny approximation at something that's real, but you really can still see, even with the best, videos that I've seen lately, I can still tell there's just something, kind of gross about a lot of it. So yeah, but so I think for software, there's a utility, used appropriately. I think it can be useful and it can boost productivity, and that's probably where I think it is the best fit. So anyway, we'll see. I mean, I guess for content creators too, perhaps if it can help you get to your vision sooner, but is it really your vision if an AI has crafted it? And I guess you could argue that as well, potentially for software. So um yeah, we'll see.
It does seem like
Brave new
many
world.
things. It's more of a tool rather than a solution. Like you were saying, Robert, you can't just make an app from a single prompt. And if we
Right.
take this image that Jimmy provided and we think about this with code, if your code is becoming like spaghetti and you can't read it at the halfway part, and then you really can't read it at the 100% part, and then you're going to try to interface this with other code or other developers in the future, or even if we try to think just generally, and I know it's a simplistic thing about the AI training itself, if that spaghetti AI is trying to train more spaghetti AIs,
Yeah.
they're kind of talking nonsense at a certain point. Maybe it's very advanced scientific nonsense we can't understand, but it does seem like we're making a copy of a copy of a copy, and it's getting
Right.
progressively worse. Like all analogies, but
That's exactly what happened with fiat money. It was a copy of a copy of a copy. And there's an essay that you should read if you haven't. It's Hyper Reality, I think, by Bullrard or whatever. But it's actually like a literary critique of a story set in Weimar, Germany. But he gets into what copy of a copy of a copy. This is what is called the simulacrum, which is ironically a copy without an original, and that's what fiat money has become, and that's I think where AI is headed, right? Like it's a copy of something without an original, which is what it becomes when you iterate too many times. And yeah, there's no spark of creativity, there's no actual generation of anything original. There's no purpose or anything like that, and it can't reason from first principles. So this is what we end up with. This is why this is not a road that you get to artificial general intelligence.
Yeah, I agree. There's no AGI. It's not going to happen.
And even when you read more, like even watching CPG Gray's video about how AI reasons, and it does like 1,000 things, and it says, "Oh, this one's good. Get me 1,000 more like that one." It doesn't know why that one's good. It's just trying, and it's refining, and it does seem throwing spaghetti to the wall. Nothing's going to stick. But then there was this other idea where they're like, maybe it sticks and it becomes the monster that destroys the world, but also makes us billions of dollars. And they want those billions of dollars, guys. You're bumming.
Well, this is why we need more natural general intelligence. So go have children, everybody. It's amazing. I'm so happy to be a dad. So really, that's where it's at.
Yeah.
And finally,
Make the world great again.
And let's swing
kids.
back to Jess C. We talked a lot about AI here. Just want to get your points on AI. What do you think, and what we've discussed as well?
You guys everything you guys are saying is very fascinating, very interesting. Just personally, I use AI slightly. I made a Christmas card with it. I use it, and it's now native to Photoshop and After Effects and Premiere. Some of the Adobe programs I use, it's like incorporated in it. But I don't know I don't know what the future is going to be. I'm just sort of sitting on the side and kind of just observing, because that's all I really can do. So everything you guys are saying is absolutely fascinating, but I don't really have much more to add.
Yeah, it is interesting to see. As I made my way to make this show, I was offered an AI product by Zoom. I was told I was getting an AI product by Google in my Chrome browser. I have OpenAI. My assistant used some kind of AI to make the thumbnail for the video. We are just surrounded in AI. But again, it seems, and again, we all want that science fiction future of the computer you can talk to and say anything. It's just not quite there. And I'm not sure if we're going to get there the way we're going, which is a potential financial disaster for those companies. But good thing I'm not involved in any of them, although I'm connected to their economy in a much wider sense. But I want to go back to what Jess C was saying and just do some quick book reviews at the end of the show. I haven't finished yet, but I still love and recommend How to Live Safely in a Science Fictional Universe, a great story about a time machine repairman. You just know it's going to be great just from that setup. And as we talked about earlier, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, just a great self-help book helping you to focus on what's important and put first things first, be proactive, seek first to understand then be understood, stuff like that. And if you're interested in that, more advanced system would be Getting Things Done, trying to manage your workflow and have more success. And if you're not feeling good, Feeling Good is a good book. The New Mood Therapy, Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, How to Treat Depression and Anxiety Without Drugs. So just check those out if you're looking for some books. And thanks to everybody for joining us. We had a great discussion today. Welcome back to Josh Shigala and Jimmy Song. Hadn't seen you guys in a long time. It's great to have you on the show. And thanks to the audience as well. Be sure to give us a thumbs up. We do know there's an error. We weren't on the right YouTube channel, so we're going to download it and upload it to the right one. But you won't even know. You'll be watching. You'll get to the end. You'll be like, where was an error? I had no idea. But we'll fix it next week, and it'll all be fine. So thanks again to everybody for joining us. Until next time, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.